Hello, welcome to From the Beole End, and we're looking back on this weekend's defeat at Arsenal, a 3-1 loss. I'm Simon Evans, and with me is Andrew Greaves, Paul Woodhouse, and Justin Connolly. No Chris Borden today. He's not feeling so good, isn't Chris? We always seem to have one of us knocked out with injury or suspension or work issues or whatever. But good crew of four of us here today, and I would think a little bit more of a positive vibe about it after that performance. Before we get into it all, just a well done to our listener, John Robertson, and all those who sort of followed his suggestion, really, of running a mile for Lyle and showing a bit of support for Lyle Foster as he deals with his troubles. And we saw that even over on this side of the pond, JJ Watt took part in it as well. So well done, everyone. I think that's a nice gesture from Burnley fans, showing their concern for Lyle and raising an important issue there. Let's talk Arsenal then. Justin, how did you feel about that one?
I'm going to be optimistic about it again. I think. I mean, it was a game that we didn't expect to get anything out of, and in the end we didn't, did we? But I still think, despite that, it didn't kind of go the way we all expected it to. It was another sort of quite solid defensive display. Obviously, in open play, we kept them at bay for long periods of the game. We had a couple of decent chances. One great chance, we could have had one or two more goals. So on another day, it could have gone a different way. It's a shame that we come away empty-handed again, but I do think that there is some, much cause for sort of optimism given the run of the next 6 games we've got before Christmas. I think if we carry on down the road we've started on in the last game against Bournemouth. No, it was Crystal Palace, wasn't it? Crystal Palace. Same lineup against Palace as at Arsenal, and same sort of solid basis for the creative players up front to do something. So yeah, I'm still not panicking.
Greaves, it looked a better shape. It looked like a team that sort of knew a bit more what they were trying to do. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think Vincent mentioned disciplined and mature performance, and I think it probably was. You know what I mean? I think Justin mentioned there, same lineup as Palace. I think part of the problem is we've chopped and changed so much that nobody ever really settles and nobody can improve in the position they're in. But I'm the same as Justin. I mean, you know me, I've said we're going to survive. I think Justin also said on Friday's episode we're going to survive. We are in the kind of positive camp. But I just think Vitinho, for me, is kind of the evidence that keeping players in the side, giving them a chance to improve in their position, will end up getting us where we want to be. I think Vitinho, of these last 2 games, has been much improved. He's looked more comfortable going forward and defensively. I mean, he was up against I forgot the name of the Brazilian. Is it Martinelli? Martinelli, I think, isn't it? And he looked good against him. You know what I mean? Didn't cause him any problems. He's caused some defenders a lot of problems this season. Koleosho, we're slowly getting more and more out of Koleosho. Again, Tomiyasu, I was saying on the WhatsApp group, really liked Tomiyasu as defender, but he showed great strength to get beyond him and pull the ball back for Brownhill.
Yeah,
we've got to stamp out that defensive frailty. I mean, how Saka is beating Bear in the air. And O'Shea's done that thing again where I don't know whether he just thinks the ball's going to drift out of play beyond the back post, but he's not brave enough. I mean, Trossard, epitome of bravery. He goes straight into the post, ends up with, a bit of an arm injury, still comes out for the second half. We're just too brittle, too soft. I think it's a second goal, isn't it, Saliba? There's a still. James Trafford, I think he's hiding behind Saliba and then tries to come from behind to get the ball. And by that point, Saliba's already put the ball in the back of the net. Arsenal very rarely hang up corners in the 6-yard box, but they knew that we're brittle there. So lots to be optimistic about if we can keep improving individual performances like we have done with Vitinho, like we have done with Koleosho. I thought Jay played a much better role. I think he kind of settled into that dropping deep again. The midfield too looked good. Berger probably man of the match again for us. But it is, shape, discipline, maturity, lots to be positive about, lots to be negative about as well defensively.
Yeah, we'll get onto that defensive stuff in a bit more detail in a bit. Woody, though, what were your overall impressions?
Probably the same as everybody else. It was nice to see a performance that built on the Palace performance. The fact that we didn't chop and change, the fact that we fielded an identikit side was quite a shock. It took me 5 minutes to work that one out. But what I think Berger at 6 is looking a far more accomplished player. And also seeing J-Rod dropping in and dropping off and being able to play off him, that has been quite a nice little revelation these past couple of weeks. And so, even though we're still languishing with 4 points, etc., we don't look like we're going to score a second goal as long as there's a month, any kind of month of Sundays. But I think there is still a lot of positives, but obviously our position belies that somewhat.
It does, and we still lost the game 3-1. And I think, Greaves has raised that point there about the defending. And we can't avoid the sort of James Trafford question, I don't think, after that game, because, I would argue on the first goal, you can't point the finger and say it was totally his fault. But a lot of goalkeepers come out and claim balls in their 6-yard box, and they've got the benefits of referees will give them a foul if they're challenged in any way. They can go with confidence for those balls. On the second one, he's got to do better. Is a euphemism, an understatement, really. He's done badly on that second goal, I think. I saw somebody on the Clarets message board sort of summed it all up, really, and said, are we not just asking too much of a 21-year-old to... we were talking about, his ability with his feet. He's not getting us going, playing out from the back and all that. Then we expect him to be like a great shot stopper, which he does look like he has that in his locker. That was a brilliant save that he tipped onto the bar. And then command his box and so on in the Premier League when he seems to be struggling with that side of it, doesn't he? I mean, Justin, have we got to the stage with Trafford? I think we've got to the stage now with Trafford where it's doing him more harm than good, him being in the side. I don't think he's learning from this process. I think he's probably having his confidence damaged. He looked a bit that way yesterday.
He did, yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, they knew that it was going to be difficult to beat us by trying to play through us like they normally do. All that tippy-tappy stuff on the edge of the box. We dealt with that really well. But Mikel Arteta obviously had a plan B, didn't he? And that plan B was exposing our weaknesses in defending set pieces and balls into the box, crosses into the 6-yard box, as Greavesy says. And that all points to him thinking that James Trafford can't handle it. And, on the face of it, it appears to be right. But it's not... He looks like his confidence is suffering. He's sort of punching the ball when he should be catching it and flapping at crosses and that come in on top of him. And you just can't have a keeper that's low in confidence because that spreads through the team, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
If your centre halves aren't confident that your keeper's going to deal with stuff in the 5-yard box, that's where the indecision comes in. That's where I don't know who's dealing with this. I don't know. So I think if you've got a player regularly making mistakes because they're low on confidence, you've got to take him out of the firing line. You've got to give him the chance to reset somewhere else. So I agree with you. I think it's time to, luckily, that's why we've got 2 top keepers, isn't it? So we can do that when we need to. So I agree with you. I think the time is right for him to bring Muric back and just give Trafford a little bit of time out of the firing line. He will, with every confidence that he will be a great keeper. But at the moment, it's counterproductive to keep throwing in him at the deep end and conceding these goals.
Greavesy?
Yeah, I agree. I think we've done it with Alderkeel. I mean, Alderkeel's not been in the last 2 matchday squads after a relatively dodgy performance, shall we say, or a run of performances where he's not been great. So I don't think there's anything wrong. I think it shows good leadership to kind of go, look, you've had that kind of, crash course in Premier League football, but now what we want you to do is take a little bit of time out, look at the pace of the game, look at how keepers do it. No Mike Trezor in the matchday squad at the weekend. Other players missing as well. No Jack Cork. You've got to be able to mix it up. You've got to be able to kind of give players a rest. Goalkeepers, Arsenal have done it, haven't they? I mean, they're the great example. Ramsdale, I still think Ramsdale's a better keeper than Raya. But for whatever reason, Arteta's decided that Ramsdale's going to have a spell out the side. That will make him a better keeper. And I think Trafford being able to observe, he wasn't even on the bench against in the last Carabao Cup game. It was Vigouroux. So get him involved, but take him out of the firing line. I saw a couple of the Arsenal players chatting to him afterwards, especially his ex-Ukrainian teammate whose name has escaped me. I'm forgetting all the Arsenal players' names tonight. And he was basically just pointing out to him, it'll come. Zinchenko, of course it is. Yeah, super finish for his goal, by the way. He was just kind of saying to him, look, don't get too downhearted. You could tell the conversation. It's a bit of a shrug from Trafford and things like that. You just think his confidence is a little bit shot. Agree with you, Simon. I don't think a lot of people kind of going, oh, he should do better on the first goal. I don't know. Maybe a bigger keeper comes and punches it and takes it away from the Saka versus Bayer duel. Maybe a braver keeper, clatters everybody at the back post and gets away with it. I don't know. For me, it's the 2 centre halves who've cocked that up. Did pull off some good saves. I was sat there thinking, oh, just get to half time, we'll be all right. Trafford's played quite well. And then all of a sudden, I didn't say it out loud, but you think to yourself, just don't even think it. Don't even think it. Because as soon as it hits 45 and the ball comes into the box, we're 1-0 down. And 44 minutes of what is, excellent play containing Arsenal, plus having a couple of chances herself. The Amdouni chance is a good save. Johan should perhaps do slightly better with his effort, but he does quite well to kind of force Raya into a save. Suddenly gets undone. We then get back into it, and then Arsenal, as you say, plan B, go, right, you know what, let's play. They were playing for corners at one point. They were playing to try and get set pieces around the box because they knew, stick it, whip it in. I mean, Trossard, that ball in to right on top of the keeper played into Arsenal's game plan, really. And we never, again, there's a couple of still images and it looks like the Everton goal. There's loads of Burnley players stood around watching and we've got the smallest player on the pitch marking the tallest.
I mean, if David Moyes, we've got West Ham after the international break. If David Moyes is watching that video during the international break, as he will be doing, he's surely saying, right, Michail Antonio, I know where you're going to be on these corners, And, Jared Bowen or whoever it is who takes them corners, don't bother putting them all the way across to the back post. Just float it in there nicely. And that they're going to, other teams, Premier League is a really tough school in that sense that people spot straight away your weaknesses. I mean, the danger is that everyone tries to do that. I mean, obviously, if we don't have Trafford in goal, then that removes that for that one. But yeah, I mean, Woody, what are your thoughts? Because it is, I mean, there is that factor as well that we've spent, near enough 20 million on this lad, and there's a danger in dropping a 20 million asset, isn't there?
Yeah, but we've spoken about this before, haven't we? It was a solution that needed to create a problem, and it has done. But I think to your point there, Simon, it's all of a sudden we're going to find that we're being targeted. And to be fair, Arsenal did it quite successfully yesterday by just floating these balls in. It wasn't that first goal didn't just come out of nowhere. They tried that little move, Martinelli just dinking it back to Zinchenko, him floating it over, and away we go. They tried that at least 2 times prior, and then it came off for the goal. And it's going to be a case whereby they could put Jarrod Bowen on Trafford. It wouldn't make a blind bit of difference, never mind his corners. You know, anybody, every single side is going to do exactly the same from here on in. And it's not just Trafford's fault. Yeah, he's a flapper, he's poor on crosses, etc. But if you look at that second goal, the way that everybody got pulled to the near post, and all of a sudden people are flapping, standing. There's Amdouni stood behind Trafford when he's supposed to be marking on the line, etc. And it was a shambles from everybody across the board. But every single side from here on in is going to target us, and it's going to be at least 1 or 2 easy chances, if not goals, per game. So something has to give there.
Yeah.
Whether it's we obviously need to do shit on the training ground, but I think taking him out of the firing line for the time being is the more prudent move.
Is there a chance that Ekdal will be back after the international break? I haven't picked up any sort of specifics on that.
I think there is a chance. Yeah. I think there is a chance. Yeah, I think he. There was rumours that he might make it on Saturday, but he just missed out, didn't he? So he's obviously on the way back. I'm not sure. I mean, he's not played for a long time, has he? So you just wonder whether he's ready to jump straight back in again. But that, you know, we talk about James Trafford, you know, his lack of confidence. A good commanding goalkeeper gives the centre halves confidence, don't they? And then, but he hasn't been the only culprit in this. I think they all need to be doing better, and not defending set pieces properly is unforgivable, really, isn't it? Because it's like it's that great leveler in football, isn't it? That it really just requires organisation and concentration, you know. So if you can't, it's really, really strange to me that a team coached by one of the Premier League's all-time great defenders can't do the basics like this. You know, it suggests either the players are not doing what they're asked of by a company, or they're not good enough. You know, maybe it's a bit of both, but they've got to start learning fast. I think Ekdal coming back would be a real boost, though, if he's fully fit, because I think him alongside Bayer is definitely our strongest centre back pairing. But with a goalkeeper flapping behind them, even those two would struggle to you know, have confidence that the keeper's going to deal with everything that he needs to. I think.
Greavesy, I mean, even if Ekdal isn't fit, would you be looking, as much as we've praised having the same team game after game for the first time, would you be looking to bring in maybe Delcroix instead of O'Shea in the centre of defence? Has O'Shea performances been worrying enough to say we don't really like this?
Yeah, I think I think if you can make one change, I think it's the constant chopping and changing where, right, what's the midfield going to be? What are the wingers going to be? What's the front four going to be? That's not helped us. What I think does help is, yeah, you know what? You take the weak link out of the defence, because we have looked better since Bayer's been back. And I grant you it was his error for the first Palace goal. He's got beat for the Saka header for the first goal against Arsenal. So he's not without blame, but he just feels like the defence feels less creaky, shall we say, with Bayer in. I think it's very creaky with O'Shea. And I think, yeah, you know, Delcroix, you know, I floated the idea of having Taylor shifted inside and Delcroix at left back got pelters because, why are you playing them both out of position? Well, listen, they're both left backs and they're both left centre halves. You know, I don't make the rules here, you know, but I just think that having Charlie in the middle, again, just adds a bit of experience in that centre section. You know what I mean? I mean, I've got my wall chart. I'm just going with what I've got. I can't, you know, if people think that Delcroix's a left centre half and Charlie Taylor's a left back and they can't play each other's position, that's not my problem. But me and Vinny, you know, we're on the same page. We know they can play both. It does come down to keeper. at set pieces. I was trying to think back. I don't think we've conceded many from set pieces and from corners. The problem is, of course, is now teams have seen it. You're absolutely right, Simon. You know, you think about West Ham, Ward-Prowse from one side, Bowen from the other. That ability to just hang it in the 6-yard box, Antonio, Souček, Soufal, Zuma, all of them players, you just do what Saliba did, stand in 6-yard box, as close as you can to the keeper, we'll hang it up. You know, if it drops out, I mean, it's a fantastic finish from Zinchenko, the kind of karate kid, you know, into top corner. There's not a lot you could do about that. But we've got to find a way of being better. And I think it's bravery as well. We're too soft. And somebody said, well, you can't coach bravery. I think we did last season to a certain extent because we were soft as shite against Sheffield United and never found ourselves in that position again. But it's that, you know, you can't coach it. But what you can do is you can make people aware of, look, if you're not willing to put your head in where it hurts, which is O'Shea's biggest problem for me, there's been several occasions when he's just not been willing to put his body on the line. And perhaps we've been spoilt with Tarkowski, even Kevin Long, is maybe through more stupidity than design. Ben Mee, etc., etc. You know, we're used to players putting everything on the line. We had it last season with Arwood Bellis.
To be fair to O'Shea, to be fair to O'Shea, he did almost score a goal for Arsenal with his face. Did you spot that?
Yes.
He managed to hit the bar with his face.
I have no idea
don't know how you do
hit
that.
the bar. I asked that question on Twitter, like, how the is O'Shea at the bar, you know, it hit his own bar from an opposition corner. And it was just like, and that to me is just a bit, you know, somebody said, look, he's just a more expensive Kevin Long. You know, Kevin Long, whenever called upon, you could never get more than 6 or 7 games without us desperately needing one of the regulars to come back. But O'Shea's positional sense is bad at times. And again, maybe that's it. The back post, he's not quite sure where everything is. I think he's a good player. He's not a Premier League player, though, for me. That's him and Roberts off my Christmas list.
I'd have Kevin Long all day. I mean, the thing about Kevin Long is whenever he came into the team, everyone was like, oh, Christ, Kevin Long's playing. I have to play Kevin Long here. And he never actually did much wrong when he came in.
No.
I mean, he never looked elegant or comfortable on the ball or anything like that. But he did the basics pretty well. I mean, it's funny you mentioned Kevin Long, but for me, that just as an aside, I thought that was our most Dyche-like performance of the season, really, in the sense that it was a recognisable formation. We worked hard off the ball. All the positive stuff was that side of it, and that encouraged me. I was saying on our little stateside second half on the last podcast that I hadn't seen any evidence that we were capable of grinding out enough results to stay up. That game provided me some, that did provide a little bit of an indication that we can set up against a top team and be difficult. You know, and Arsenal were nowhere near the best. We have to say that they weren't. They've come in off a busy schedule and they weren't at their best. But I want to throw one name out there as well because obviously we focus on the defensive side of it, but Zeki Amdouni, I'm trying to work him out. I'm really not sure about him, so I need your wisdom and expertise. I mean, Woody, what do you make of him?
Oh, bloody hell. He's mercurial, isn't he? He's one of these where on a highlights reel, he's going to come across as looking like a damn fine player. Yeah. But it's like, once you start taking the whole game into consideration, you see a little flash in the first half. Then you forget for 40 minutes that he's been on the pitch, and then he gets hooked off, and that's when you're reminded again that he has been playing. You know, and he seems to want to complicate things a little bit deeper. He's obviously wanting to. He doesn't really look like wanting to play with his back to goal, for example, and he's wanting to do tricky stuff. When he does the nice stuff, it's very, very nice, but it's all very infrequent. And if you're asking, would you drop him for the next game, Simon? I may be tempted to try somebody else in that spot.
Fleeting moments, isn't it, Greaves?
Yes.
Yeah, I think Woody hit the nail on the head. There were a couple of times yesterday when you do forget he's playing. And then he'll pop up on the halfway line, turn out and take 2 or 3 players out of the game. And you'll go, oh, Christ, yeah, Zeki's playing. And then he'll sting the goalkeeper's fingertips with an effort, which is great. And again, but he is one of those players who you get his performance level up to a Berger, up to even a Vitinho, and they're completely different players, I know they are, but if you can make those marginal gains to get their performances up, then you'll have a fantastic player. Does he deserve a place in the starting lineup? I agree with Woody. I'd be very tempted, whether that is bringing a Cullen back in to play a proper 3 in midfield and have Berger almost in the Amdouni but also defensive number 6 role, so switching between 10 and 6 whether we're in or out of possession. That to me would be the one. Ramsey, we keep seeing flashes from Ramsey. Brilliant in the first half against United, gave the ball away against Newcastle, gave the ball away against Chelsea for goals. Mercurial again perhaps is but I just think Amdouni at the minute, fleeting as you said, I think you've both hit the nail on the head with Amdouni. I really want him to show us that potential that since December last season, when he was scoring for Switzerland, he was scoring for Basel, he was top scorer in the Europa Conference. You want to see that, but again, nothing wrong with just sitting him on the bench and saying, look, this is the Premier League, this is the movement, this is the pace. You need to learn to get into games a little bit more than he is doing, especially as a number 10, because that's an important role.
Yeah. So we like the idea of keeping a regular starting lineup, but we're dropping the keeper.
I mean, we're tearing it apart. What we like the idea of is Brownhill and Berger. I think is what we're really saying as a pivot.
What do you make of him, Justin?
I think he's clearly got quality, hasn't he? And I do wonder whether the fact that he drifts in and out of the game a little bit is more to do with the fact that, quite often the ball's up the other end of the pitch, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's one of the issues we've got. I mean, especially on Saturday against Arsenal, we didn't see that much of the ball. But yeah, we have to find a way to get these forward players more involved. But I think with that solid foundation that we've got now with that sort of midfield diamond shape that he's come across, I think there's an opportunity against lesser sides to see more of the ball and get those forward players involved a little bit more. Because you see flashes of stuff from him that you just think, oh, why doesn't he do that a bit more often? But then he doesn't get the ball that often, does he? So I like him as a player. I would like to see a little bit. I think Ramsey's been unlucky with his injuries. I think he showed a bit of quality in that position as well. And I'd like to see a little bit more of him. But for now, I'm happy with Amdouni. I think the more of the ball we have as a side, and the more we can get it to him, the more he'll show what his real qualities are.
He's got a great touch, hasn't he? I mean, his first touch sometimes, and his close control and his ability and speed to move away from someone. But I've saw a few times yesterday where he'd get the ball, he'd maybe get away from his man, but then he'd run down a dead end. But that may well be what you're talking about, Justin, that he's running down a dead end because there's not enough support around him, because we're not getting forward in the numbers, because we're being a little bit more careful away from home. It's a tricky one, isn't it? I mean, Vitinho, you mentioned, Greaves, you mentioned that. I must admit, I've been somebody. I said last summer during the early pods that I thought we needed to sign another right back because I didn't think he'd be up to it in the Premier League. But I must admit, I agree. On yesterday's performance, it was encouraging. Is he going to keep his spot long term? Do we think, over Connor Roberts?
Good question. Why change it? If you've had 2 decent performances, then why change it?
Yeah, I think he's another one of those players too, be more effective against the lesser sides, especially with his his pace down that side. It gives the oppositions that other thing to think about, doesn't it? If he can get forward like he can in a way that Roberts tends to be more of a sort of drift into the midfield kind. I'm not sure he's got what it takes to do that job with this sort of system that we're playing now. Because Vitinho's going right up against their fullback and trying to move it down the pitch with his pace. Defensively, obviously, he's not as solid. But I thought in open play against Arsenal, they all defended magnificently. So we may have to reevaluate that a little bit as well. But we're not changing the right back. Let's keep at least that one position in place.
Greavesy, big picture. I know you've been looking at some comparative situations from teams who struggled at the start of the season, and I know we can all expect this to be a very positive take. But I think from what you've been telling us, you found a positive and perhaps one that might not be so positive as an example. But we've got coming up. We've got games against West Ham United, Sheffield United, and then straight away Wolves away on the Tuesday, and then on the Saturday, the 9th of December, Brighton away, and then Everton. It's a run of games that there's no mega team in there. There's no big six in there. Where do we need to be then, based on these comparative? Well, tell us about the comparative things you've dug up.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, just for Chris Borden, because he keeps mentioning on the WhatsApp group Derby's record. We're actually 2 points behind where Derby were at this point, so we should probably get that stat out of the way first of all. So that's the negative.
That's not the positive one.
That's not the positive one. But just for Chris, I know he'll be listening, even though he's not on. They had 2 more points this stage and went on to get, obviously record low points. But I looked at last season because I do think there's a bit of comparison with Forest in terms of them bringing in an absolute ton of players, not getting the system right, not settling, too many new players, revolution, not evolution, blah, 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 blah. After 12 games, they were bottom with 6 points. Now, I grant you that's 2 more than we've got. But don't forget, I'm counting the Forest game as a win, so I've got us level on points, essentially. I know the football authorities probably won't agree with me. I'm not going to get anywhere with that, but in my mind, that's where we are. But then the more interesting one for me, because, Forest being 2 points ahead is not that comparable. Wolves, after 15 games last season, again, survived 10 points. 10 points. Now, I think we've got, I think, and again, sticking my neck out a bit here because of my wall chart, I think we'll be better than 10 points in 5 games' time. Now, that might be me being too optimistic, given the fact that we've only got 4 points.
So Wolves had 10 points after 15 games? After
15 games.
Yeah.
And then started to build up a couple of points, and things like that. And I think by week 17, 18, 19, they were still in, but third bottom. Southampton had sunk to the bottom, didn't really get off the bottom. Everton had dropped into the bottom. Leicester was starting to drop. We're perhaps seeing teams like Forest not pulling away, Fulham beaten again today by Villa. I just wonder whether they've got a cushion at the minute, but all that can change in the blink of an eye, can't it? We find ourselves bottom. There's only one way from that. So they're my comparisons. We've still got to win football matches. We've still got to pick up points.
Well,
we have only got 4 points. Well, yeah. But between now and game 38, we can't go down. Technically, we can't drop into the championship yet. So there is only kind of, so that's what I'm hanging my hat on. As long as we're better than 10 points after 15 games, we're on track. And me and Vinny aren't worried. That's it. That's all I've got.
I'm definitely backing you on the idea that we can't actually be relegated until the season's ended. But
that's a certainty, isn't it? That's the only certainty we've got.
Only certainty I've got.
No, but there is a serious point there, which is both. I think the Forest one's a more encouraging one, because you're right. They spent a similar amount of money, and everyone mocked them and said they've gone too far. They've destroyed the team that's come up. They've lost all their momentum. They're playing like a bunch of strangers. and then they did find a way to recover from that bad start and survive. I think that's the most encouraging example, really. But you're right; it's interesting. I mean, are we going to pick up those points though, Justin? In these games, you look at West Ham. You know these.
Well, you look at you've listed the games there. The first two of those are at home. I'm not seeing any of those games as being the kind that company calls those games that we've lost before we've even started. And we just seem to me to be on the brink of something clicking, or signs that it's starting to click a little bit. And if we can play like we played against Arsenal, against some of these teams that aren't to that standard, there'll be obviously there's going to be more missteps along the way. We're still evolving as a side. They're still evolving as players. But I think there's every reason to think, that idea that we put up on the last episode that we need to just make sure we stay in touch, with the pack until the window opens again, and we might be able to fill in a few of those gaps in the squad that we know are there. There's no doubt about that. I think there's every reason to imagine that is, possible. It doesn't seem as desperate to me as it did, before the Palace game. It seems like we've hit upon something now that we can start building on, and these next 6 games are where we need to show that we are learning and learning fast.
Woody, you were pretty much in agreement in my sort of depressing verdict on the bonfire night sort of thing. Has this performance at Arsenal allied with the Palace one in the way that Justin's just described? Has that given you a bit of belief that Greaves' optimistic comparisons might offer us some hope?
Not really. If we're being perfectly honest. I mean, we're managing still to find new ways to concede. If we compare it again to the Championship season, we always found ways to score and ways to win, irrespective. It seems to be this season we're finding any old fucking way to concede, etc. We weren't suddenly planning this week on, let's see how we can flap up balls in the 6-yard box and get stuff 3-1 yet again. We've learned quite a few different ways in his first few games, how to get stuffed, and I don't see how that's changing all of a sudden. It's not like we're getting squeezed out 1-0 by Arsenal. They still trumped out extremely, extremely easily and extremely handily just by hoofing the thing into the 6-yard box, which is very un-Arsenal-like. So I don't know until I start seeing these performances and mistakes being eradicated to a greater or lesser degree, then I don't see anything coming from it as yet.
What we need is a performance like that first half against Arsenal, over 90 minutes, with a 2-1 win over West Ham at the end of it, and then I think a lot of things will feel different. We just need that win, don't we? I mean, it's obvious. So thanks very much for listening to us. We'll be back again next week looking at all things Claret and Blue. And don't forget to follow us on @BHole Podcast on Twitter, X, Facebook, and leave us your reviews and thoughts, and just get in touch with us. Send us a DM or a message on Facebook if you've got any thoughts or suggestions. Thanks very much indeed for your support. And on behalf of all the team here, thanks very much indeed for listening. Have a good week, and up the Clarets.